Should you watch the Jazz in the 2023-24 season? If you're new to the NBA, or you're just looking for a new team to follow, this series is for you. I'm making a case to watch every NBA team, and today we're taking a look at the Utah Jazz. The Jazz have been really busy lately. After tearing down their playoff core in the 2022 offseason, they entered a rebuilding phase to focus on developing young players and drafting key new ones. But the Jazz took everyone by surprise when they actually started off the 2022-23 season looking quite good. They got off to a hot start thanks to breakout games from Lauri Markannen and a new coach, Will Hardy, who built a system of true team-style basketball that let the Jazz beat many playoff teams. But near the end of the season, the Jazz took their foot off the gas and let themselves lose a few games for a high draft pick. Now the team is entering the 2023-24 season with an even deeper roster thanks to its off-season additions. From the scoring ability of Lauri Markannen to the shot-blocking talents of Kessler and the exciting arrival of new players like John Collins, there's a lot to like about this team. The question is, can the Jazz improve on their surprising previous season? And are they worth watching throughout the upcoming season? But before we get into all that, let's talk about what sets this 2023-24 Jazz team apart from the rest. So what do the Jazz hope to accomplish this season? Well, unlike last year, they're not looking to tank for a high draft pick, so they're looking to win more than the 37 games they won last season. I'm predicting around 40 wins myself, but the Western Conference looks deadly, so I won't put money on that. Anyway, they'll need to address their unbalanced roster, especially at the point guard position. As I'll show you, the Jazz have a lot of guards, but barely any point guards, which hinders their playmaking and offense in general. This season's a good opportunity to decide on who's going to fill that playmaking void. Finally, I think defense needs to be a priority. They had the 7th worst defense in the league last year. Now it's normal for a rebuilding team to suffer on this end of the ball, but if the team wants to take another step, players will need to invest time and effort into their defense. Thankfully, they've got some new faces to help out with that, but more on that later. Lauri Markannen is the Jazz's breakout star who's looking to take another leap in production after his first All-Star season. Lauri is the biggest reason why the Jazz's rebuild has progressed so quickly. He's a versatile forward who can finish at the rim, set up his teammates, and shoot 40% from 3. He can play both small and power forward, and even a little bit of center, making him a true Swiss Army knife in a team system. Me personally, I love to see an overlooked player revive himself, so Lauri is not only, but the main reason I think it's worth watching the Jazz. Now, as the winner of the Most Improved Player award, Lauri is the clear #1 option on the team, but the question this season is, can he maintain or even improve his game? We've seen players have breakout seasons before and fizzle out right after. If he can prove his big year wasn't a fluke, then the Jazz have their guy. Kessler is the Jazz's starting center, who's going into his 2nd year. Kessler was actually drafted by the Timberwolves, but traded for Rudy Gobert, and as many Jazz fans will tell you, that trade worked out just fine for Utah. See, even as a rookie, Kessler was a rim-protecting prodigy, ranking near the top of the league with his ability to block or alter shots just by being in the paint. He was enough of a force that he finished top 3 in the Rookie of the Year vote. Now, I've said before, I'm a defense enjoyer, and there's nothing cooler than seeing a 7-foot mountain of a man just shut down the paint like Kessler does. But the really cool thing about him is he's showing potential on offense as well, with 9 points and 3 offensive rebounds a game in his rookie season. I really think he'll be able to average a double-double next year, proving himself as one of the league's best two-way centers. Next up is a new face. John Collins projects to be the Jazz's starting power forward this season. He was acquired from the Hawks this summer, and after a few disappointing seasons in Atlanta, this could be Collins' comeback year. He has a lot going for him, like his strong 6'9" frame, interior scoring, and overall athleticism. But here's the catch, Collins used to be a good 3-point shooter as well, but he only shot bricks last season, partly due to a hand injury from a couple years back. Without a reliable shot, Collins has limited options. He either clogs the paint for his teammates, or hangs out in the corner until he gets the ball for a shot. That's one reason why the Hawks moved on from him. He's just not as versatile as other power forwards, like the playmaking Draymond Green or the rim-protecting Evan Mobley. Still, if he can get his 3-point shot back into the high 30%, then Collins will be a no-brainer to keep his starting position. Jordan Clarkson is the Jazz's starting shooting guard, and one of the team's best scorers. Clarkson's been a reliable bench option for many years, even winning 6th Man of the Year in 2021. But he actually started every game he played last season, averaging a career-high 20 points per game. So what sets him apart? Well, Clarkson can score from anywhere on the court, and his ability to create his own shots is crucial on a team without many playmakers. That said, Clarkson's not exactly a lockdown defender, and he isn't the most efficient scorer either, but he can still help the team just by taking better shots. He shot 33% from 3 last season, and 44% overall, on 17 shots a game. If he can cut down on some of those wasteful shots, he could help the Jazz tune their offense even further. Let's talk about that point guard issue. The Jazz don't have a true starter level point guard, but Chris Dunn would be the closest to the real thing. Dunn is a former lottery pick who signed with the Jazz out of the G League midway through last season. His original 10-day contract became a multi-year deal after he exceeded expectations. His numbers in just 22 games with the Jazz were actually some of his career best. So he shot a career 53% overall from the field and 47% from 3, while averaging 4.5 assists per game. Now, he isn't your classic point guard, but he's a high-level defender and the best passer on the team. This makes him a great fit alongside the more offensive Lauri, Clarkson, and Collins in the starting lineup. There's no other true standout guard, so Dunn will likely be a starter next season. Now here's the deal. Dunn has something to prove. Those amazing stats I showed you come from a very small sample size. He'll need to show that his electric 22-game run wasn't a fluke, and that he deserves to start in the NBA. Alright, now we get to the bench, and starting with the guards, Utah has a lot. Ochai Agbaji is a shooting guard entering his 2nd year with the Jazz. He's just 23, but he's highly athletic and a promising shooter with enough development. Agbaji didn't get much playing time to start his rookie year, but as the year wore on, he earned more and more minutes. And as a lottery pick, he has serious upside as a backup shooting guard, so don't be surprised if he starts a few games as the Jazz figure out their rotation. Collin Sexton is interesting. He's supposedly a point guard, but he doesn't run the offense like a true point guard would, with his mediocre passing and court vision. He plays more like a shooting guard. He can score consistently at the rim or knock down threes. Actually, Sexton is a pretty good shooter, averaging 38% from 3 last season. The problem is, he doesn't shoot the ball much. He only shot 2.5 threes a game, which is not ideal volume for a guard like him. Then there's his lack of defense, which makes it hard to justify starting him over Chris Dunn, for example. So Sexton looks to be a backup guard this upcoming season. Now the question with him is, can he play more like a true point guard? Like I said, he plays more like a shooting guard, but the Jazz have a lot of those already. If he can step up his playmaking and shoot more threes, then he can really make a case for a starting spot. Keontae George is one of the Jazz's 2023 draft picks, taken at number 16. George is another shooting guard who gives the team more scoring at the rim and the three-point line. He's also a decent defender with flashes of playmaking too, though both of those skills are still raw right now. So where does he fit with all these guards? Well, I think George would ideally play Clarkson's role, coming off the bench to provide some scoring energy. Also, George played really well in the Summer League, showcasing his great potential as a scorer. So I expect the Jazz to find consistent playing time for him this season as a cornerstone of the future. Okay, let's talk about THT. Talon Horton-Tucker is yet another Jazz point guard that isn't really a point guard. THT actually played shooting guard most of last season, but near the end he was the lead ball handler as the starting point guard. He can kinda run an offense, but he isn't that good at distributing the ball, and is quite turnover prone actually. He's also a pretty bad shooter. There really isn't a lot going for him, but THT could still improve as a playmaker. He is pretty young after all. If not, he's a useful trade piece if the Jazz decide to upgrade. The Jazz also have a mix of talent and experience in their bench forwards. Besides Lauri Markannen and John Collins, there's the veteran 6'11" Kelly Olynyk, who can play either power forward or center. Olynyk started all 68 games he played last season, splitting his time between those two positions. But with Walker Kessler breaking out as the team's future center, and John Collins taking a starting power forward spot, Olynyk will come off the bench. Now he isn't a star by any means, but Olynyk knows how to contribute. He can score well in the paint, and pass really good for a big man. And as a 39% three-point shooter, Olynyk spaces the floor well enough for Utah's other big men to work in the paint. But he isn't the best rebounder or rim protector, and with the Jazz's new additions, Olynyk is looking like the odd man out. Could he be traded? Possibly, but until that happens, look for Olynyk to play important minutes off the bench, doing a little bit of everything to help the team. Next, we have 2 draft picks, both forwards. First, Taylor Hendricks was drafted with the 9th pick, and he's really the premier offseason addition for the Jazz. Hendricks is a 6'10" power forward who can stretch the floor with 40% shooting from 3 and lock down the paint or the perimeter on defense. He's basically your classic 3-and-D player, and a perfect fit next to Walker Kessler and Lauri Markannen. Hendricks brings a lot of defensive energy to a team that needs it, and can play center if the Jazz need to play smaller lineups. As a rookie, Hendricks will be coming off the bench, so look for him to show his potential early on in the season. Then there's Bryce Sensabaugh, a 6'6" small forward who can get buckets, plain and simple. He can score at all 3 levels, and move without the ball to get into the right spot for cuts to the rim or shots off the catch. Now, Sensabaugh injured his knee before the draft, which caused him to fall to the number 28 pick, and it's not his first knee injury either. So the question with Sensabaugh this year is how his recovery plays out. He'll miss a good portion of the season, but if he returns, will he bounce back and live up to that first-round talent of his? As you can see, the Jazz have some puzzles to solve. They have a lot of talent, but also a lot of overlapping skill sets. First, there's the point guard problem. This team is full of scorers, but who's going to run the offense? Chris Dunn can do a decent job, but again, he isn't a traditional point guard. Could the Jazz consolidate some guards in a trade? They certainly have the pieces to land some upgrades. But young additions like Taylor Hendricks and Ochai Agbaji are here to stay, so what happens to Talen Horton-Tucker, for example? Or Colin Sexton? While both can improve as young players, it's hard to do that on a crowded roster. This group's got questions, but I think that's part of the intrigue. I like watching a group of young guys figure out their futures like this. But the Jazz aren't just a group of players, they're a team. See, even though Lauri is the clear first option, it's not just a one-man show. This team plays unselfishly, and it feels like everyone has a stake in the win. Everyone gets some minutes to show their stuff, which is how Walker Kessler started to show his defensive brilliance, for example. Or how Chris Dunn was able to get a contract straight out of the G League. So this season, I think you should expect a team where each win is a statement that they're doing it all together. And that's your look at the 2023-24 Jazz. This is a developing team that isn't quite ready to contend, but it's still worth watching all the same. The unselfish team system and the multiple big shooters and the many shot creators make the Jazz a fun team to watch. Even if they don't win, you still get the sense that they could win, you know? So in the end, should you watch the Jazz this season? I think absolutely. If you like underdog stories, team basketball, and watching young talents rise up before anyone else, this Jazz team is worthy of your League Pass stream. They may not be title contenders just yet, but they are laying the groundwork for future success.